Today we are here to know about some application development, which is named as Fullstack Web Application Development, where the final semester students will be knowing about web technology and some concepts awareness about HTML, CSS, PHP. But those requirements is not only enough to create your application or come up with your application development. You do also require to have some knowledge between connection between SQL, PHP, and so on. So today we have with us Raghu Prasad sir, who is having 24 years of experience in various platform. I need to mention those environments or platform where Python, machine learning, IoT, what all platforms are there? So he's capable of knowing that and conveying or creating an awareness of those platforms to the students. So please make use of those things and be prepared for your technical skills. Anyway, it is required for your mini project also, final year students. So please make use of it. And I really thanks for Raghu sir for accepting our invitation and making this session awareness of some full stack web application development for our students, both pre-final year as well as final year students. So thank you, sir. Thank you so much for making your time and coming with joining us and making our students aware of various technologies.
Thank you.
So
So, thanks.
session is over to you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. At the outset, I thank Hemant sir for providing me an opportunity and coordinating uh, to conduct this webinar on the full stack web development. So for the fifth semester already, we had done one webinar on the test automation. So it is good to know like what are the various opportunities available and how to prepare yourself while you are doing the engineering and not waiting for final semesters to come. And in this, I also thank Dr. Narsimhamurthy, the body, as well as the principal, Chinna and the management, as well as the student for giving to me and also giving me an opportunity. So I will be taking over the session on the talking over the session on the full stack web development, and also I have a small demo at the end to show like small. Also, I will do a bit of code walkthrough so that you know like what kind of code you have to write when you get into an industry and basically when you get into web application development. Okay, let me just share my screen. Hope you are able to see my screen. Can
Yes,
anyone of
sir.
you?
Yes, sir. It is visible, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. Okay, let me start.
Sir, just to interrupt.
Yeah.
Students, please note down your queries at your place. If you have any queries, please note down at your place and we'll clear at the end of the session, not to interrupt in the middle, not to interrupt the flow. So please make sure that you have written or note down at your place so that your queries will be resolved at the end of the session. So make sure if you have any queries, please put it in the chat box so that at the end we can clarify. Thank
Yes,
you, sir.
thanks. Yeah, thanks. Okay, so just to give a brief introduction about me, already I gave it for the fifth semester student. So I have around 23 to 24 years of experience. I'm also a lecturer in engineering college. For about 7 years, I'm into IT from last 16 years. I worked with various companies like Cisco, CSC, ICHA, and the First Apex. And I started my career as a Java developer, and I got the opportunity to work on various technologies as the technology emerged, and as I get into multiple roles, project lead, project manager, solution architect, and finally associate vice president. And then as I was into both teaching as well as I'm into IT, I thought I was very passionate about teaching, and from last 3 years I'm into corporate training and consultancy as well as training students professionals on various technologies. Okay, Java, Python, web technologies, JavaScript, IoT, test automation, and all. Machine learning, AI to mention a few. And so we, along with a few of my friends who are from the IT background, we started Kaushalya Technical Training and Consultancy, and where we have been providing faculty development program, students development program, as well as internship at many for many educational institutions. And also we conduct training for the IT industry. So where once you get into IT industry, there also you need to get the training, as well as once you are experienced, also people want to get the training on the niche technology skills. So that is the space where we are providing the training. And we have, these are the many of these educational institutions, many universities, colleges in Bangalore, outside of the Bangalore, and many companies, to name a few, like L&T, Nextion, Philips, Cornell, Aspire, and other companies in and around Bangalore. And today, I'm going to talk about what is called as a full stack web application development. And what are all the technology? When you say full stack web application development, what exactly is a full stack? What are the technologies you will be using, and then you can be called as a whatever you develop is called as a full stack web application. And web application architecture, and then as a full stack developer, what are your roles and responsibilities, what you are supposed to do, bit of software development life cycle, and also career path in full stack, and then the demo. So full stack developer is is known as looks like simile. If I have to tell, it is like Leonardo da Vinci. You may be knowing Leonardo da Vinci, right? He's a great fine painter. He's a scientist, mathematician. He was wearing various hats, right? He is into many things. So if you want to compare, like full stack developer is like that. So he has to do many things when it comes to the web application development or mobile application development. So that is what we call it as the full stack developer. Just let me close my WhatsApp window. It is making some sound. Okay. Okay. So that is what we basically call, in general sense, a full stack web developer is wearing various hats. What kind of hats he is wearing? When you say web application development, you people are knowing, like either you are developing a web application, website, or maybe a chatbot or anything. Those are all, we call it as a full stack development. Even if you are doing mobile app development also, it comes with it. So when you look at any application, it has basically two things. One is what you look on the screen, what you look at the screen. Like if you open up any web application or a website of a banking or insurance or any e-commerce site, what you see, we call it as front end, right? That is, we call it as a client side. And once you make a request or once you fill a form, once you submit, the processing, whatever happens, we call it as a backend. Okay, there are two things. One is the front end and the back end. So in the back end, this is what is a full stack web development. So when you say full stack web developer, you should have the ability to do the complete end-to-end application development. When you say end-to-end application development, so you take, for example, it's not that the entire application you have to develop, but whatever the piece of the application you develop, you have to do end to end. For example, you are developing one, let us say you are developing a web application for your college itself, so where you want to register for some event. Then what you do, so the screens, the front end screen, as well as the logic, saving the data into the database, everything should be done by a one person. For a particular piece of the code, we call it as like a full stack web development. And also debugging, and also a bit extended can be hosting also if required. So this is what we call it as a full stack web application development. So when you say full stack development, there are many things. So the front end, what are the technologies typically when you do a front end, when you want to develop a web page, what are the technologies you have to use? To start with, you would be using like HTML, CSS, JavaScript. So that is where you start with. But there are many other technologies which is used nowadays for the front end development. That I will be telling in a while. Also, when you say back-end development, it is typically any programming language, be it Java, be it Python, be it .NET, or any kind of any kind of technology which you are going to Ruby on Rails or anything is the backend. And when it comes to the database, any database, you know, broadly databases you have like SQL and no SQL kind of a database. When it comes to SQL databases, like you have MySQL, or like you have NoSQL databases like MongoDB. Bit extended, if you know, it would be good, like what is called as the dev. So once you develop the application, you deploy it. At least when you are doing the project, you should be, because no one else will come and help you to deploy it on a cloud or anything. So bit of cloud knowledge also would be good. Similarly, when you do the mobile application development also, there also, like the front end is the mobile app and the back end again, it could be any one of them. The back end could be any of the technology which I will be mentioning going forward. So when I say it is like a full meal, you know, like when you go to a hotel, you have full meal and mini meal. This is like full stack developer is a full meal. So very important for anyone to learn these things. So when it comes to the front end, one is, as I told you, you should be knowing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Ajax. Because see, when you look at a company, I worked in the company, many companies, right? So basically, as a developer, you go. When I also managed more than 100 people team. So many people like who come out of the college and join the company. What kind of jobs they are going to do? Either they will be developing a web application, or they are part of the mobile application development, or they are part of some testing, or they may be part of the deployment. Okay, these are the things nowadays you can be getting working in also data science and others. For any company, for that matter, even though mobile application development is required, but still everyone is having a web application. For example, you take any bank has a web application, right? Even though they have a mobile application, chatbot, anything. So very important as a person to do full stack development, because earlier what was happening, this is what I have seen in the industry. Earlier, when a person was only working on the back end, like for example, he was working only on only working on the SQL. So all his life, maybe 10 years, 15 years, he's only working on the SQL only. He was not knowing the front end technology, even he's not knowing other middleware technologies. So that was like that previously. Now what is happening with in a less time you have to do quick development. Second is many startups are coming. They want a person who can do all these things. They don't want a separate person for only doing this front end screen, someone doing the middleware, someone doing only the database. So they want a person who can do all these things. So that is where the requirement is. Because I could see like when the people coming out of the college, they may know only some programming languages. Like maybe they know Java or C or C++. But nowadays it is very important because people will ask directly, I want a full stack Java developer, or I want a full stack Python developer, or I want a full stack, what you can call it as a JavaScript developer. So very easy to get into the industry, as well as when you can explore yourself when you are studying, you can develop your own application and things like that if you know the entire end to end. From that perspective, there are so many possibilities. You have to read everything, not required. You can select any technology framework. So when it comes to front end, basically finally it renders as HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Ajax. And there are libraries which are built on top of them. So what are those libraries? Many libraries nowadays, you have JavaScript libraries, we call like Angular, React, and also Bootstrap is the extension of CSS. This is for the, developing a very good and neat, what you can call it as a front end, and jQuery, and then Sass again, it is the CSS. So these are the few things which earlier, like traditionally, we were using JSP, Java Server Pages, ASP. Nowadays, I won't see many of the companies are not using those things, even though they are part of the front end. Okay, so maybe legacy projects or projects which are running from so many years still has them. This is the front end part. When you come to the back end part, it is predominantly any programming language plus the libraries built on top of the programming language. It is not good enough just a programming language. It is a programming language plus a library built on type of the programming language. What are the options you have? Either you can do PHP, on top of it there is something called Laravel, and the C++ is not much used in terms of the this thing. C sharp is in fact used, and you have Java and a library on top of it like Spring. Python library on type of Python, we call it as Flask or Django. JavaScript, we have something called Node.js, which is the runtime environment of the JavaScript. And you have various frameworks which are built on top of it, like Express, Django, Rails, Laravel, Spring, built on top of these languages, and the databases like Oracle. Some few are commercial databases, few are non-commercial databases like Oracle, MySQL, MongoDB, MS SQL, PostgreSQL, and all. So there are many mix and match like of the technologies. So usually like popular full stack, popular people will ask you, do you know mean stock? What is a mean stock? It is Mongo, Express, Angular, Node, which is one of the popular stock which is used for the full stack web application development. Similarly, these are all the JavaScript. This is JavaScript technology. And then you have merge stock, which is merge stock again, Mongo, Express, React. Instead of Angular, there is React and then Node. And then Django. Django is like Python. It is a library built on top of Python. And typically people will be using like Django, Python, and MySQL, and then Rails or Ruby on Rails. Okay, that is where PHP, Ruby, MySQL, and then the LAMP stack. You may be knowing about the LAMP stack, which is Linux, Apache, MySQL, and then there is a mix and match of the stack. We call it as hybrid stack. Example, Angular as the front end, Java and Spring as the back end. Or React as the front end, Java and Spring as the back end. Or Angular as the front end, Python and Django as the back end. So there are many technologies you come across. Now the question is, do you have to go through all those things, or which one I have to select? There are multiple options. One thing is for sure, you should be knowing any one programming language to a greater extent. Which programming languages? It could be Java, it could be Python, or it could be JavaScript. So that is what any one of PHP also being used. So any one of them you should be good at it, and don't stop there only. On top of that, you should learn any of the what you can call it as the full stack associated with that particular programming language. For example, if you are using Java, then you should know like Java, Spring, and preferably Angular or React like this. So any one of if you want to pursue your career with Python and Python with data science, it is very good to know even the full stack web development, because in data science also web application development is part of the data science or machine learning or anything, right? So there are many technologies. Not necessarily it is not possible to know every technology. One technology you can take and then you can pursue that particular technology, because once you know any technology, it is easy to switch to another technology because most of the things will be same. So now it comes to the generic web application architecture. When you say web application, so what are the things you will be having? So you have a site, right? Maybe a browser, like your browser. So you're accessing the application by typing www something, or if it is an intranet URL, right? So you have this, and when you make a request, the request will come to a web server, right? The request will come to a web server. What kind of web servers? There are different kinds of web servers you have. You can have Apache, Tomcat, okay, or like you have something called Nginx, and then Microsoft IaaS. There are many web servers. There is something called application server also. There are application servers from the top companies like you have IBM WebSphere and then Oracle WebLogic. Okay, so there are many application servers also there. There is a web server, there is an application server. And on this, there are many web applications built on this, maybe using any of these technologies, maybe J2E, Django, .NET, or else, and then you have a database to this thing. So this is what we call this as the front end, and this is the back end. Back end is where any of the programming language and the libraries on top of it, plus the SQL. So this is how a generic web application architecture will look like. Even you can access the same infrastructure using a mobile app also. Only the mobile, the front end is different. When it comes to the back end, again, same back end is serving both the request of the web application as well as the mobile application, right? Both web application as well as the mobile application. So this is a typical architecture. So you don't end up only learning one programming language and only when you say Java or C++, not only that, it is not good enough when you want to get into web application development. Any company for that matter, as I told you, when it has a web application as one of the delivery channel for its products and services, right? Having said that, when it comes to the full stack, there are different full stack, as I told you. Like the users can access the application from different devices. And another important thing is for different devices, how do you render the pages? Because mobile is very small, right, compared to a laptop, and also compared to a big TV and all, it is very small. Still, you are delivering the content on different devices. So that also is one of the things we call it as responsive design, so that irrespective of the devices which you are using, the same content is delivered to different devices. That is also which you should look at. So when you say like web application that it can be hosted, finally we have to host it, deploy it. Deploy it. One is when you are developing, you can put it on your laptop or a desktop. Later on, when you want to host it, you will be hosting on some servers. It could be Amazon, it could be Azure, it could be what you can call it as the Google platform or digital ocean, any of the platform you will be deploying. Also, there is something called Firebase, which is from the Google. So again, you have front end, back end. So if you look at a blueprint, like if it is JavaScript, if you are using JavaScript as a full stack web application development, what you should be knowing, HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and Bootstrap, and then you should be Angular, good to know. And then the backend is we have something called Node.js. Earlier, what was happening? JavaScript was limited only to the browser. It was only limited to the browser. That means JavaScript is run only on the browser. Nowadays, what happened? They have taken JavaScript and they have JavaScript run in runtime environment on the server side also. That means you can run a JavaScript program the way you run Java program, the way you run Python program. Otherwise, we were learning JavaScript only on the browser. So that what happened, like many people, many companies are transferring their technology stack from traditional programming to this kind of new technologies. Why? Because nowadays you have many real-time technologies. What is the meaning of real-time technology? Like you see Ola, Uber, or any of these food delivery apps. So you want the data real time, right? Suppose you want to know, like when you book a cab, you want to know where your cab is, right? These are the real time data is happening. Similarly, your Google Map, real time data you have to go. The additional technologies like what was developed on Java or on .NET and all. So we call them as synchronous. What is called as synchronous means this is called as synchronous. That means these technologies can do the can actually what they can do is they can handle more requests. They can handle more requests. They can send more responses in a quick fashion compared to the old technologies. That's why many technologies which was using the traditional technologies has moved to these newer technologies. Take LinkedIn, you take Ola or Uber. or you take any of them, they must have started their this thing with Java Stack or PHP, and they slowly move to this technology like JavaScript technologies, where we call it as asynchronous, and it is much faster, much it consumes low memory, and it is much efficient. So things are happening, a lot of things are happening in this particular area. And when you say we have to which web technology to which web technology to select, so when a company decides like which technology to select, so they will look into all these aspects. Suppose you are given a task of developing a application to manage an event in your college. Let us say, okay, this is a small application, and then that is the thing your professor has asked you to do. Then you have to ask so many questions to the professor or the lecturer who has given. So you have to ask them, give me the requirements, sir. What is the exactly you are looking for? What it has to do, right? That we call it as a functional requirement. What is a functional requirement? They will say, okay, let us say the aim is to develop a application, web application to manage a event. Then you will ask, sir, who are all the participants? How many is it inside Bangalore or within Bangalore, outside Bangalore? How many participants for the event? What is the rules and responsibility? Roles and responsibility. How can I take? Is it free or is it payable? Things like that. Those we call it as a functional requirement, right? And there are non-functional requirements. What is a non-functional requirement? We'll ask how many participants can participate, right? And then at a time, is all those events are happening at the same time? Things like that. So these are called as the non-functional requirement, which is related to the load which is coming on the application. So based on that, you have to select the proper technology as well as the deployment server and things like that. So when we want to choose a technology stack, whether company wants to go with technology A, maybe Python technology, maybe JavaScript technology, maybe Java technology, they will look into all these aspects: the functional requirement, non-functional requirement. When you say non-functional requirement, it is scalability. What is the meaning of scalability? Let us say you have developed an application. Today, only 100 users are accessing it. What happens tomorrow? Suddenly, it became popular. 500 people started accessing. I am talking about at the same time, 500 people are accessing. Then how scalable the technology is, or how scalable the application you have developed. Is it, do you have to rewrite something? And all those aspects are taken care. And also the availability. Availability means is that application should be available 24/7. That application should be available throughout the year, right? And the security, what kind of security of the application, how the user is accessing this application, and the maintainability. So suppose if there is a change in the application, how quickly we can do the changes, how it can be easily modified, deployable and all. So these are the things the companies will look into when they say they have to develop, they have to get into a web application development using the various technology stack. Very important is the development type. How much time I have? If I use technology A or technology B, which is more efficient, and also at the same time which will take less time to develop this, as well as how much is the cost of development. So all these aspects are taken when they decide on the technology, and also the existing resources. What is the technology already being the existing people? What are the technologies they know? How to upgrade them and things like that. So these are the few things the companies will look at when they want to decide which web technology stack to do. So once they decide, then comes the full stack developer. Then they will say, look, okay, this is the guy who is wearing various hats. As I told you, like in the beginning, so he must be knowing not only limited to one thing, he must be knowing many things. Okay, so then they will ask this guy, can you be part of my team? So these are all the requirements, and this is how you're started, right? So when you say full stack web developer, what is that you have to understand? What is that prerequisite, or what is that you should be knowing? Something technically, something not technical. The first thing is understand the customer need and develop a use case. See what customer wants. That is what should be, you should understand clearly. Okay, or your when you get into the IT industry, or when you are developing an application for your project, or you are part of a, what you can call it as, if you have gone through any event, right, any hackathon, there also they are going to ask you to do so many things, right? First you have to understand the exact requirement. What is that we should know. Then usually what people will do, once they understand the requirement, they will come up with a prototype. What is a prototype? Prototype is just some HTML files. They will develop some HTML file, and they will show it to the end user, saying that, look, when I develop the application, it will be like this. This is what is my understanding. Is your understanding is also correct? Am I going in the right direction? Because customer will say, these are the things. For example, you go to a customer. The requirement is, customer. Let us say he want to develop an application for his business. Right? Let us say he is into a business of, like for example, food delivery. He is into a business of food delivery. He'll tell, I want to develop this. Then you sit with him, understand the requirement, ask him, sir, what are the things? Do you, what is the meaning of a delivery? So what kind of payment we have to use? How is the delivery process? Who has to pick up and things like that? You will ask all those things. Once he says, okay, this thing, then you go and present him what is as a wireframe or a prototype, saying that, look, the application will be like this. This is how it will be. The first screen will be like this. On click of it, this is the second screen, and things like that. So that what happens, he will understand, yes, yes, this is what I wanted. Or he will say, no, 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 I don't want like this. This should be done like this. As I was telling in the other webinar also, when you get to the software development, the coding is only one of the part of this software development. It's not the software development, right? So there are many things goes into this. First, the requirement gathering, analysis, and coming up with a wireframe, and then here again, important thing is to ask the customer, so do you want this application to be rendered on a mobile phone? Do you want this application to be rendered on a big TV? Or what kind of delivery channels this particular application should be rendered? And we call it as a responsive web design. Okay, that is very. And then they start like developing the front end code, or someone will start with the back end code, and then understanding architecture, overall architecture of the project. What kind of architecture project we do? There are different architectures. I will be talking about the architecture in a while. And then you start developing the back-end programming, and then you interface the back-end and the front-end programming. When you do this development, you have to also interface with third-party software. What are the third-party software? Simple thing you are aware of is the payment gateway. Because nowadays, any application, any web application, usually involving collecting money, they will be interfacing with the payment gateway. I will show you in my demo also. We have interface with one payment gateway. So how to interface with the payment gateway? Those are the nitty-gritties you have to understand as you go and as you get into the technology. Then also you should know like how to write a SQL, develop the backend, to write the SQL, and then put that SQL into your programming and all, and then getting into the minimum unit and the integration testing, whether your module is working fine, and is it working fine along with some other module. So these are the things, roles and responsibility. You want to develop a project for yourself, your college, or you're part of any hackathon, or you are actually getting into any industry. These are the few skills which are required. One is the soft skill, another one is the technology skill. Right? So when it comes to the architecture, there are many architectures when you say web application development. So the architecture is like how the different parts of the application works, and how they interact with each other. How the front end is interacting with my back end, how my back end is interacting with my database, and how one application is interacting with other applications. Because when you get into an enterprise architecture, in a sense, when you get into a bigger companies, there this is what. See, actually, once I have gone as a consultant in Malaysia, where one insurance company has acquired another insurance company. One insurance company has acquired another insurance, or the top two insurance companies in Malaysia. And I was told to, when I looked at those two companies have so many applications. They told me to like normalize those applications in the sense you have so many applications, and when we actually want to merge two companies, look at which application can be used. Can we use one of the application which is developed by a company A in another company? What are the changes are required? So I worked as a what you can call as enterprise consultant where one application is interfacing with that. You have to look into various architectures that is being used by those companies, like what we call something as service oriented architecture. There is something called model view controller, MVC, something called single page application, microservices, serverless architecture. These are the slowly when you get into the web application development, you come across these things. What is service oriented architecture and all, we will just deal in a time. See, nowadays, what is happening? One service is integrated with many services. I will give you a simple example. Let us say verification of your Aadhaar, right, is integrated with so many services, right? Integrated with so many services. And when you actually you knowingly or unknowingly when you give your Aadhaar number, many applications uses that Aadhaar number, and they actually talk to the Aadhaar identity technology team, in the sense either Aadhaar server, and they actually validate who you are. So simple thing is when you go and when you want to buy a Geo SIM, or when you apply a passport, or when you want to go for any kind of government services, all these things happen. So then how it works? You are using one your application, how it interacts with other application. So usually they interact with what we call it as a service oriented architecture. Their application is created like a service. What is a service? You give your Aadhaar number. If a valid user is there, then they give you the Aadhaar details. Okay, you give the Aadhaar number, they give you the Aadhaar details. But you have to give it for different companies, right? Which will partner with them. Okay, so this kind of architecture, we call it as a service oriented architecture, a specific service. Aadhaar itself is a big application, but one part of it, they want to design it such a way that it is service oriented, in the sense someone asks for a service, you get the service. Simple services is like, as I was telling on the other day, simple services every day you are getting a newspaper is a service, because you are subscribed for that service, right? Because at the end of the month or in the beginning of the month you are paying the money. So again, same thing, how you are getting your TV channels, you are subscribed for a service. Same way in software also, there is a service oriented architecture where rather than highly coupling various components of an application, it can be actually organized such a way that this particular component can be accessed from another component. That we call it as a service-oriented architecture, or we call it as SOA. Sometimes you come across with web services, right? So these are the terminologies you will be hearing. So when you say web application architecture using service-oriented architecture, before service-oriented architecture, so many things are cluttered together. So many applications are cluttered together. So they were only only catering to the requirement of the what you can call it as inter-application requirement. But when the company wanted to go for the service-oriented architecture, they have to redesign the system such a way that they will make many reusable components, and many components can be accessed outside of their company. That is what is one of the architecture is called as, we call it as a service-oriented architecture. I think we will be hearing something of this once you get into full stack web application development. That means many of the things are reorganized or rebuilt. And maybe when you get into web application development, when you go to a company where you want to do, maybe you are involved in this kind of activity, where a company is having an application and they want to go global, or they want to open up the thing, then they have to reorganize because they want to have so many delivery channels, delivery partners, and all. Then they have to reorganize the program. This is what we call it as the web application architecture. One of them is the service-oriented architecture. Okay, so this is one of the architecture. So then you will be using services, web services to do this architecture. Something called RESTful web services. What is called as a RESTful web services. It is where you say maybe the Aadhaar is also designed like that. You give the Aadhaar number, they will give you the details of it. Just to give an example, what is a web service or how these things are there. Many what you can call it as many news channels are showing the temperature, showing the weather information, right? How do they get the weather information? So from where they are getting the weather information? So usually this comes as a service. In order to show one service, let us say there is a application called as weather map. Just see, there is something called weather map. So this is the API. Weather API. Okay, open weather map. This is one of the service provider who is giving a weather information to the services. I'm talking about the services, to some service. How is that? Suppose I want to know the weather in Bangalore. You type in Bangalore and then you press enter. They are going to give you the information of the weather in Bangalore. So see, these are all called as the services. Like for example, stock, like the stock and shares, right? Every TV is showing the stock and share. How do they get it? Or any other information? How do they get it? Even the news itself is given as a service. There are many things which is given as a service. So how do you give a service? They will give you an API. We call it as application programming interface. So if you look at this is when you want to do the development, it is free, but after something, it is costly. So if you want to get into web application development, you should also know the third-party services. They are giving some third-party where they are going to give you a details of this. For example, if I click this. So these we call it as the web services. Okay, just to show you. So you can get this thing by city name. So they are developing a web service. When they develop the web service and also they're passing the key. So using that you can get the details of the services. Okay. So when we are into web application development, when we are into full stack web application development, you should know like how to interface, how to integrate with other services, which is developed by any third party vendors. Okay, any third party vendors, how to do this. Okay, let me. Okay, this. I'll go. A minute. So this is open weather map. So basically, you will be subscribing to these services. You have to subscribe to these services to get the details. And there will be charges also free for so many calls. See, many companies are like developing their backend services and they're going to give you the various details like this. Various details they're going to give you. This is what we call it as. Okay. So what is the point I'm trying to make is when you basically like you should know like how to interface with the other parties in order to get the details by having a security mechanism. Obviously, there should be security mechanism where you will be giving the details and you will be giving the details information about this and you are getting it. Okay. So this is what is one of the service we call it as an open weather map, which is going to give you the weather and the forecast also. They are going to tell you the forecast and all the details they are going to give. This information exchange happens through web services. Okay, this is one of the architecture which they will be using. This is like that. There are so many services are there. You have to put that services into your system. That is also part of the. So in order to interface with this, we are using what is called as a web service. What is a web service? It is a program running on your web, which give you which give you some information based on your input. Based on your input, it will give you back some information. That is what we call it as a service or a web service. So they are going to give you the details about the information. And there are some other architectures also. So there is different kind of architecture. So most of the web applications you develop, they work on three-tier architecture. We call it as a three-tier architecture. So we call it as a MVC. You must have heard, or going forward you are going to heard. Here, what is MVC? V is the view. View is what you people see on the screen. Now, what we are seeing on a web application, we call it as either it can be HTML, JSP, or ASP, or anything. That is what we call it as a view. The model is nothing but the data. Between them, there is a controller. Controller is like a air traffic controller or even traffic controller. So what it does, it controls the flow, right? So that is what it happens. Similarly, in a web application, when you make a request, suppose you want to register for a register to your application, you make the as a user you register. Then what will happen? Your request will come to a controller. So controller is like, as I told you, a traffic controller. What you do, the request will come, it will route to a program which will handle that registration process and then saves the data into the database handling the registration. Similarly, you want to log into a system and then you want to buy a product or you want to get a report. So internally, the architecture is like this all. View is nothing but the screen, whatever you see, and once you in the screen you fill something and you submit, it will come to a controller. From the controller, the data is populated into a model, and the model is saved into a database. So we call it as one of the architecture. We call it as a web application architecture. So when you get into this, you will be knowing about all these things. This is where the code could be organized in a proper way, so that each layer has its own responsibility. The data layer has the responsibility of saving to the database, retrieving from the database, and all those things. Controller is actually controller has will redirect the request to the corresponding what business units, business logic. It will business programs. It will redirect to, and then it will populate the model, and then the data is saved. This we call it as a web application architecture. We call it as a model view controller. Okay, these are the various layers you come across when you get into web application development. We call it as a layered architecture. What is the meaning of a layered architecture? Is these are the layers. And it is possible even to deploy some of the layers on different machines also. And this is where the scalability, availability, all those things comes into picture. Because if you put everything cluttered in one particular program, then it is not possible to scale that. Scaling means today there are 100 people, tomorrow there are 500 people, day after tomorrow there may be 5,000 people. So how do you basically scale your application? So the way we write the program itself is architecture should be such a way that tomorrow if there is more load comes also, it should be able to scale. From that perspective, this architecture like model view controller is the usability and all those things, extensibility. Nowadays, you come across with some of the architecture like single page applications. What is a single page application? In the sense that if you look at the mobile application, in a web application, it is easy for you to move from one page to another page, right? But in a mobile application, like how do you move from one page to another page? Basically, those applications are developed like a single page application. It does not mean that everything you are seeing, like only one piece of information you are seeing. You're seeing many information, but finally it renders only one page only. On that, it will render the component which is required. For example, you are seeing like, for example, there is an application where you want to register. At that time, only the registration model is loaded on the same page. Then you want to log in. Login module is loaded on the same page. Instead of having multiple pages, it will be on the same page. And that is how the latest technology, whatever we are using, like Angular, React, and all. So they work on what is called as a single page application. Okay, so this is where this kind of architecture is used. And in case of the single page application, like nowadays when you watch any what you can call it as a sports channel, whether you watch an IPL cricket match or like a football match, EPL or anything, someone hits the runs or anything, the screen is not flickering nowadays, right? Earlier it was not like that. So when you are watching a match, in the sense I'm not talking about the video stream, I'm talking about the live score. When you are looking at the live score, it won't actually refresh. Refresh in the sense the entire screen does not get refreshed. So that is where we are using something called Ajax asynchronous JavaScript object, where if there is any changes, if one particular person hits the runs, backend and we will getting that particular event, and it seamlessly updates only the portion of the page. So those things, those are the few of the architecture technologies you will be using. We call it as the asynchronous JavaScript and XML. Okay, these are the few things we will be using when we are using a web architecture. So nowadays people are talking about something called microservices. Again, this is instead of having a big monolithic application, the applications can be broken into smaller pieces. And only this, if there is any change in the smaller pieces, that can only be deployed. Okay, that is something people are talking about nowadays called as the microservice. So these are the various that is typically used in like online shopping or bigger systems where if there is small change is happening rather than bringing down the entire system, so they can only piece of the part can be patched down. Otherwise, you have to make the entire application down, right? So that is very like in an application where it has to be running 24/7, there is a problem. Those kind of a scenarios, we are using something called microservices, where one particular application is drilled down into smaller part, and smaller pieces can be like changed, can be deployed without affecting the other pieces. Okay, this is another architecture, and then we have something like serverless architecture. Nowadays, you have like cloud environment where you need not to know like what server the application is deployed. Only you give your application code, then it will be deployed without you people knowing what kind of a server it is being deployed. So that is we call it as a serverless architecture and all. So what is that point I'm trying to make is when you say web application development or full stack web application development, one is the technology. Second one is along with the technology, which technology you have to go, and then you should also be knowing bit more about what kind of architecture you will be using it. Maybe in your theory part, when you are studying or web application, you may be knowing all this. There may be small statement or small sentences about web services, SOA and all. Better you can go ahead and just explore and experiment what is a web services, how it can be done programmatically, things like that. So then your knowledge would be cemented. Okay, so that is what is very important. Experimenting, exploring is very important rather than just the theoretical knowledge, right? So that is what is very important. And when it comes to the application development, on the other day also I mentioned, just to mention the design, I mean the development, the coding is only one part of the application development. That is like knowing waterfall model or any other model, agile model and all. So nowadays, very important coding will be around 30 to 40% of the development life cycle. When you get into a company, it's not just only coding. They will first thing they will ask you to go through some documentation. You should have a good patience to go through the documentation, understand what is that written, understand what are the requirements, understand some technology terminology. Like nowadays, even when you go to a company, what they do, they will ask you to, they will give you some UML document. That's a design document, right? So unified modeling language. That may not be taught in your college or in your regular syllabus. But those are all very important. Like when you go to a company, the first thing they will ask you, go through these documents and come back. I will ask you some question. What you understood? Okay, and also maybe you have to go back and ask them, okay, I have not understand this. Can you tell me, explain me this? So those document may not be in plain English. It is in a design document. Okay, you should also like know how to read the design document, which is a UML document. We call it as use case document. We call it as high level design document, low level design document. So many aspects are there. It is not just going directly doing some coding and things like that. So the requirement document, they will ask you to go through. They will ask you to go through some of the architecture document where they will be putting like this kind of diagram. Why I told you all those things, they will be putting some kind of a diagram like this, which you may not be able to understand. Then you should know, like, at least you should at least understand what is being written here, what are the relevant information being provided. So that is what is very important. And then nowadays you get into what is called as a agile development, where a team works together and you have to do the delivery in a 15 days time or 3 weeks time. You have to take up one particular work and you have to complete, and you have to. There is a daily interaction, everyday daily interaction. There is a daily interaction with the customer or the product owner and things like that. So you are part of a team when you get into this kind of a web application development, or for that matter any development, where every day your progress will be monitored. It is not like every day is very important. So that's why very important when you are having very good time in your colleges, when you are studying, also look at these technologies and see how what is happening, because when you get into the real world, what you studied and what is the expectation, maybe there may be quite different, or there may be what you can call it as a gap in the expectation. So how quickly you go up, somehow you get a job, but you have to study there, you have to stay relevant, right? That is where very important thing to understand these things. Okay, so now let us look at the top programming languages. So there are various places where you can get this information. You can look at the top programming languages in the Stack Overflow. Okay, the Stack Overflow, you people may be knowing, like those who are into coding and you have some problem when you are doing a project, you look at the Stack Overflow, right? As per the Stack Overflow, the top technologies in 2020 are JavaScript technologies, then Python and Java, and then C Sharp, like this. So this there may be a fluctuation here and there. So very important is to learn the JavaScript technology, because when I was working with when I recruited many people like from the colleges like you, so the people who have moved to these JavaScript technologies, their salary also has increased, and also they got very good opportunities. So things are changing. JavaScript has become a very key technologies nowadays. When I say JavaScript, you should know JavaScript and languages on top of it, libraries on top of it. Like you have Express.js, what is that? React, and then Angular and things like that. Similarly, Python and Java, and common things are HTML, CSS, SQL. See here, HTML, CSS, SQL is a must. That is a must. So you should be knowing all these things. So what I'm trying to say, suggest you is like, if you want to get into a full stack web application development, obviously you have to get into that, or mobile application development, or anything you are put into some project where this is that, which is mandatory, which is good to have. With my experience, mandatory is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Just go through W3 schools, whatever is there, just learn. That is a good starting point for you. Okay, so JavaScript is not just doing some alert and all. You should know like what is a function, what is a data structure. Understanding data structure is very important. What is a list, what is an object, and all those things. Then good to have is like Bootstrap, Angular, React. If you get a chance to work on it, or if you want to get into some kind of a you want to explore yourself, you can explore on any one of them. Bootstrap is a CSS schema, but from the technology perspective, from the front end, either Angular or React. When it comes to the back end, it is mandatory you should be good at one programming language. When you say when good at one programming language, what is the expectation? One is you should be knowing object-oriented programming. That is a must. Second is using the data structure, like what is a list, and then what is a set, what is a map. Okay, how do you populate the data? How do you populate the data into this data structure? How do you put your object into this data structure? How do you retrieve the data? very important. That is what is when you get into the real programming, this is where everyone is looking at this. The collections, right? This is where it is very important. Then good to have is like any of the framework. If, let us say you wanted to pursue your career in Java, Java plus Spring Framework first. Don't just leave it as Java, Java from Spring Framework. If you want to do it web development in Python, Python plus plus. If you want to use JavaScript, it is Node plus Express.js. So you have to go bit beyond this something. This is what is the need of the hour, and it will be really good. You can do your own project. Okay, and as a student also you can do your own project. You can learn money also. Like nowadays there are many freelancing jobs are available. People are students are there while they are studying also they are earning because there are many jobs comes up. They want you to do some bit of code and they can give you the money also. And when it comes to the database, SQL learning SQL is a must. On top of it means SQL plus any of the database. So maybe MySQL or Postgres. Good to have is like some commercial databases like Oracle or NoSQL database like MongoDB. And very important is to know the Git. Okay, so source code, source control. You should, I think you should, everyone should be having your own Git repository, right? It's a very much because nowadays what happens like people wants to know like what is the program you have written. Show me your program. Show me what you have done. Okay, show me what are the projects you have developed. Suppose once you pass that level of clearing some of the written test, the next thing is they're going to ask you, show me the program, whatever you have written, and show me your Git. And if you are having a good, like if you are deployed your one particular application on a cloud, give me the URL. That is what they look at. So very important, not just to limit yourself to whatever you study in your theory subjects or the practicals lab in your college or as per the university syllabus, just look beyond that. So that is what my suggestion is. That is what you have to look for. So that is where you can build your career path in a fruitful way. Okay, so now with that, I will just show you a demonstration, one particular application which I have developed for a NGO where we have integrated some payment gateway and all. It has just to show you like what kind of code will be there, not to just make you understand everything, but when you get into when you get into a real project, what kind of code will be there. That is just I wanted to show. So now I will show you one application. This application is developed for a NGO. It's called ectpen.org. I mean, you are actually doing a lot of work, and this is developed on Angular as the front end, and the back end is what you call it as the Spring framework. Okay, so the entire thing is developed, and then you can go and do the donation, and where we are interfacing with the payment gateway. Just one piece of the code. So for what purpose you are donating? They are doing a lot of charity. Suppose a free hospitals. Let us. Okay, how much amount? Just like they want to be confirmed. And then when you say submit, it will go to the payment gateway. See, this is a one of the like when you get into a full stack of development, you should know like how to interface payment gateway. It is like different companies have different standards. They will give you a documentation. No worry, like they will give you a documentation and they will ask you to read the documentation, and then there will be sample code also how to interface and all those things. So you should be, and then you can put the email. And then proceed. So this is a Razor Pay. The Razor Pay is one of the payment gateway actually which has come up very well recently. So many companies are say now after that you have to select any of the options like credit card, debit card, net banking, and all those things. Any of this. So this is what is one of the application which I developed recently. And so if you look at this code, just to show you like what kind of thing this is developed as I told you on Java, and the front end is on Angular, and the back end is Java. So here we are using the Spring framework. Just to look at the code, the way code is organized. The code is organized like we have all these Java programs organized into various things. I was talking about model, right? I was talking about model. Model is nothing but a data carrier. So what is a data carrier? Say someone donates. I want to capture his information. This we call it as a model. In I was taught, just let me, and this is associated with a particular table. In a database, it is associated with a particular table. Let me just show you that also. Okay, it is opening workbench. So this is attached to MySQL. This is a simple application. It does not have, I mean, the screen looks small, but from the functionality perspective, not much. This is the database I have. It has these tables, like one is the donor details, another one is the service list and all. When you look at the donor details, these are the information. So when I save this data, so I will be getting the information like this. This is what is stored. See, when I say model, I was talking about the model in a web full stack web application development. So this is what is the model I am talking about. This is where the data is captured and it is mapped to a particular table. Okay, so this is what is mapped. Each field is mapped to a particular table. But now the thing is, the data should come to this particular table, right? That is what I was talking about a controller, right? This is the model. And nowadays, even you need not to write a query. There are some frameworks where it will directly generate the query for you. If you do this mapping and all, it will generate a query for you. Something in Java we call it as Hibernate, where it is directly mapped to this. So this is what is one of the architecture. Let me go back to this, and I'm talking about this MVC architecture. See, this is the model. Model is connected to a database. Okay, this is what is the model. You can see this is attached to a particular column. But now data should come, right? That is where controllers, we are talking about the controllers. The controller where there are many functionalities and the controller will pass the data to a particular thing. So this is what we have it as a controller. This is a Spring application, right? We have something called index controller, and there is some service repository, and then you have something like. So this is the way like the program is architected or like controllers. This is a controller. We call it this as a REST service. The at controller. So we are using what is called as the RESTful web services. I was talking about like information exchange happens between the server and the client. Okay, so this information exchange happens through a web service where we are going to give the, if I want to interface with the banking system, there will be giving some key and secret key. So that is what we will be writing, and then we are going to, so whenever I make a request, see, whenever I say donate, whenever I click on the link and if I say donate, it will come to that. So when I started clicking on the donate, it will come to this particular program, and this program it will apply the logic. It will collect all the information. It will collect all the information from the front end, and it will do. And when it comes to the this is the backend programming, and when it comes to the what you will call it as the web part, this is the web part here. You're writing your code in the pages, right? See, suppose if it is a what you can call it as a page index page. So this is how the front end will look like. So this is what the front end will look like. Here we are using Angular 1, and then with this. So this is like the HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and CSS, very important aspect. And then if you look at the JavaScript program, this is how it looks like in a real world project. Like you should be knowing more about like functions, objects, and then what you can call it as the arrays and all this kind of a program we will be using. So when you want to get into this, and also you should know like how to interface with the backend services. The front end to backend interface happens through like Ajax kind of a thing, where we are making the HTTP calls and things like that, some service calls. So this is actually, and also we are storing all the images in an image folder. These are the so many images we are using. All the style sheet will be organized in a different program. This is a real world project which I have done recently, and it is gone live and it's being used. So what is the point I'm trying to make is like when you want to be a full stack developer, this is how the many technologies you should start learning, not only limiting yourself to one particular programming language. Similarly, like if you want to even in the what you can call it as when you want to get into data science kind of area, there also the front end is required. For example, I will show you another just application where we are developed an application to predict the price of a home. Okay, we are developed an application to predict the price of a home. So where data science is used, we applied all the algorithms to that. But finally, for the end user, how he will be accessing that. So there also the what you can call it the web application comes into picture. So that is another application. Just to show you. This is developed on what you can call it as the front end is mere HTML, CSS, JavaScript. Back end is Python Flask. In this program, you look at like client side. That's all our HTML, CSS will be in this, and we have a model. This is the what is data science, and this is machine learning, and this is what is the data we have. Say, let us say we collected the information about the home prices of various parts of Bangalore, and we want to build a system where we wanted to predict the home price using the machine learning. Okay, this is what is the data we have. This is the way when we say data science or machine learning, we'll be collecting this data. So they had given various data like area type, availability, location, was the kind of the home, is it a 2 bedroom, 4 bedroom, 3 bedroom, what is the square feet area, and then what is the price of this. Okay, this is the data which our model will take, and then model will predict. For that also we have to develop the web application, right? Then also it is very much required. So the model will do all these things, machine learning model, and then you have to pass the request from your web to that model, right? So that is where you have to have some kind of a server. So I have a Flask server here. This is a Python program. Just to demonstrate you, not to get into the detail of it, just to show you like what kind of projects will be there. This is where I am running the backend program. This is a Python. Okay, my Python program has started, and this is my client. This is a simple web page which is developed. Okay, see this kind of UI, because the backend programming is even though machine learning and all, but front end, because see now as a customer I come, I want to buy a house. I want to know, I want to buy a house of 1,000 square feet, bedroom, bathroom in this area. Okay, suppose say Jayanagar or any area, judicial layout. Then I'm asking you, give me the price, estimate price. See, this is 28.48. Where this 28.48 that is lakhs coming from? It is coming from my machine learning model. But the front end is required. Okay, for this front end is required, you have to interface with the web application. So what kind of projects you are in, wherever you, what kind of industry you are in, I mean, from the IT perspective, web interface is very important. Right? That is where they start with. Then they move to the mobile, then they move to the chatbot and all those things. If you want to make your career in the full stack development, this is what you have to do. This is where we have a lot of, these are the few of the programs where this is again HTML, CSS and all developed. And some of them are Python program. So I showed you like various layers, like in this, how it is separated and how it is done. This is where our JavaScript, the JavaScripting, and this is the HTML, CSS. Okay, if the code is properly organized, this is what you have to get into. So when you want to get into like this kind of programming, you're ready for a job ready, or you want to do your own thing, you want to start up something. Few of the technologies you should be learning and mastering. So one of them is the full stack web development. You can select any of the technology which you want to do it, but you should get into the detail of those technologies so that you can independently build it. That is what is very important. So with that, actually, I have all these program source code available in my uh, these are the few things I suggest you to people to do. So if you can look at my website where all the source code is available. If you want to get into all the videos, YouTube also is available. This is the website where I will share you this. You have like Git, whatever I demonstrated, all those programs are available except for the one commercial one. So my YouTube channel and all, everything is available. Let me just see where I can get it here. And also the Git, I was talking about the source code, right? You should be having your own Git. Like this is my Git. You can also create your own Git. You can put all your source code there because someone wants to ask you like what and all you have done. You should be able to show, demonstrate them. We have 44 repositories and what kind of programming I have done and all. And also I have my own YouTube channel. You can subscribe to this also to get all these technology channels. Okay, so yesterday, whatever I conducted on the other day, I uploaded to this your college video only. So you can look into this also on the test automation. Same thing, this video will be, I also be uploading. Okay, so with that, let me just end my webinar for today. So very important for you to get into any full stack development, just look at the mandatory things and look at the good to have is okay. At least you should get started with the mandatory things so that at least you can reach there and you can develop your own web application. You can have your own website or not. And now very time is really good to explore, experiment because cloud, you can do many things free, right? You need not to spend even a single money on that. This is where the right time you have and you can excel yourself once you decide you want to make your hands dirty, meaning hands dirty means along with the theory start coding, very important. Okay, with that let me thank again the Department of Computer Science for allowing me to conduct this particular webinar. Hope you got some ideas about full stack web development. And with that, I can take any of your questions. If you already put something in the chat window, let me go through. So over to you, sir. Thank you. So you have any questions or anything, please put in the chat window. Hope I should be able to address them. Hemant sir, are you there? Yeah.
Yes, sir, I'm here. I'm just waiting for students to
Yeah.
raise their questions. So let them raise a question. But meanwhile, I have a query, sir. Sir, as you mentioned in the PPT, where you mentioned to have a career path, you need to have a prerequisites, where you mentioned Angular or React. So what could be the difference in these two JavaScripts? Whether Angular is very much necessary or React is very much necessary, or is there any difference? So could you please
Yeah.
conclude on this?
Yeah, sure. See, this is good to have actually. In fact, I mentioned as good to have. Okay, so from the perspective, good to have, and it is like whether it is assumed that if you relate them to automobiles, whether good to have a Maruti car, whether good to have a Hyundai car. From that perspective, it is like this. So both of them, like what you can call it as Angular or React, are developed on top of the Java. Angular, as you know, it is developed and managed by Google, whereas React is managed and developed by Facebook. They all started as in-house development, and when they find it is working for them, they release to the outside world. And there is a difference between Angular and React. Angular is a full-blown framework. We call it as Angular as a framework, whereas React is a library. There is a difference between a library and a framework. When you a framework, multiple things you can do with the framework, whereas React as a library, you have to input many other files from outside of the React. Whereas in Angular, many things are there. Tell you an example, like if I want to make a request to this backend programming, HTTP module is directly built in here. Okay, so like that, there are many features are available in the Angular. Having said that, React nowadays actually there is something called React Native has come up, and with that you can, if you learn React Native, you can develop mobile application. We call it as a hybrid mobile application. That means, like if you want to develop an Android mobile application, you should know Java, and Android is the platform on which we develop. You want to develop an application for an iOS, that's all your Apple phones and all, there is a different environment altogether. Now we have a common where there is something called React Native. You can develop application for both the platforms together. Okay, so both has their own advantage and disadvantages. If you want to get into a series of web application development, you can get into Angular. If you want to tomorrow you think of doing going for the mobile along with the web, I suggest you to go with the React. So Angular is a framework, React is a library. To top of Angular, you have to keep on putting some other libraries for your own to work with some other what you can call it as to make it like a full-fledged framework. That is the difference between Angular and React. Hope I addressed your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. So there are a few questions from students as well.
Yeah.
So we have been using PHP for doing our projects. How good is its scope outside the curriculum, sir? That is a question from Sri Raksha, finally a student.
See, PHP still is there. PHP, Laravel, many of the what you can call it as the one is many of the websites or web applications still are running on top of the PHP. Okay, but when it PHP and when you say PHP, there is something called Laravel, which is there on top of the PHP, which is a framework on top of it. But when it comes to the and also like you have what is called as WordPress, right? WordPress is developed on top of PHP. Any web application you develop, like there is a content part is there. Content is there, right? Content means what? See, as a developer, you develop something. After that, your customer has to put all the content, right? For that, you have like WordPress, some content management system. WordPress is among one of them, Drupal and all those things. From that perspective, still PHP holds good. Still PHP is there. But if you want to develop any application that is not very content driven, but mostly data driven, in those cases you can use this latest technologies, what I was talking about. But still, around 80% of the website runs on what you can call it as WordPress, which is there on top of the PHP. If you want to pursue like career, PHP, like you should know, you should slowly start understanding how to create a plugin. There is something called plugin and all those things. Okay, it is that, but as I told you, from the content management perspective, from like doing small projects and all, it is there. But people are also doing some bigger project on that. It is not, it is there. But if you want to develop a real kind of application, then nowadays like these JavaScript technologies are much more preferred than. Okay. Is only Python language enough for full stack development? Yes. Python plus, I told you, no, Python plus Flask or Django. Plus HTML, CSS, JavaScript. HTML, JavaScript, CSS, and all those things. Could you please share the PPTs? I will put it into my website or in any of this, what you can call it as. I can create a repository for your college. Please, you can actually follow my feed, and definitely I can share the PPTs also. Okay, or please also subscribe to my YouTube channel. Definitely I will upload this thing also. That is the only requirement I want you people to just to what you can call it as subscribe to this and also follow the Git repository. Okay, hope I addressed your question. Any other question?
So there is one question from my end.
Yeah.
So how good opportunities are outside when it is with related to software developer as well as full stack developer? What is the difference between these two? Since they are both working on front end, back end, same. So how these two are different?
See, when you say software developer, it is a generic terminology. Okay, you can be a software developer, you can only work on database. You can be still a software developer if you only work on the server side programming. When I say server side programming, only writing the business logic. Okay, I explained you the project, right? I showed you the various code. Some code is in the database level, some code is in the business layer level, some code is this thing. You are called as a software developer, like either just yourself writing only the backend, only the query database, or you are developing only the front end. Okay, still you are called as a what you can call it as this. See, there are some companies which are what you can call it as doing this from so many years. So they are restricted themselves to that. For example, if you take some people working in a project in IBM and all, from last 20 years, they are only into like, for example, backend programming only or database programming only. But if you want to get into those kind of companies also nowadays, see, I provide training to various companies, right? They also ask, even though they may give you a project, they may give you a project where you are only working on Java, and you are working on only on what you can call it as the writing the business logic, but still they want you people to train on various other aspects like front end, back end, and this thing, because we never know where they are going to put you into. So from that perspective, still, if you are good, one thing is for sure, you should be good in one programming language 100%, wherever you want to go. Okay, wherever you want to go, full or better. If you're also good in the SQL. Those are the two things. Other than this, if you learn something extra, it is like a bonus, because let us say you are working in a project and that project comes to an end. And after that, what they will do? They will look for the opportunity in another project. That is what really happens. And the people who actually skills themselves, skills, they will be preferred. So from that perspective, I won't see much difference in that perspective, because nowadays people are looking for you to know at least good in not one technology, good in more than one technology. That is where the people will prefer. That is, having said that, all of you may not go. It is good that I am happy all of you going to top level companies, but there are many companies challenging. There are some problem is their problem in the sense, when you go into very big project, some of you may end up in doing maintenance kind of a project where there is not much challenge. But if you want to challenge, you want to get into a startup kind of an environment, or you want to get into mid-tier kind of a company where they expect you to know the full stack development. Okay, if you want a challenge, you do it. But if you still want to stick to a one particular programming language and you want to do it, there are also options are available. But only software is so dynamic, it is better to learn more than one technology, or at least full stack, or any of the one or two things, so that there are plenty of options for you. Okay, hope I addressed your question. Any other question?
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. So let me know in case you don't have any questions.
Yes, sir. Right now, I am not able to see any of the questions from student side. So let them come back. Even
Yeah.
I've shared the feedback link for the students in their WhatsApp group, so
Yeah.
that let them give the feedback, so that tomorrow by end of the day, I'll be sharing the feedback from the students.
Yeah, I think those who are attending on the Friday, Monday, I think few of them, if any questions are there, I should be able to address them on that day also, if required.
Sure, sir. Yes, yes. On behalf of Department and East West Institute of Technology, I really thank you, sir, for making your time and your commitment in creating an awareness for the future generation, where they need to get update on several platform to know about what is required, what is not required, which is important, which is not important. So which needs to have some interest and which needs to have lighter or not note. So once they start with the theory session, including practical and coming up with their own projects is mandatory. That is a skill set where the students are going to upgrade themselves. So thank you so much, sir. We look forward the same support from your end. I really thank you for coming and giving an session on full stack web application development. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay. Thanks for having me here, and also thanks to the students for your patient listening. And I got the feedback from you, and hope you like my session. And also, if possible, you can subscribe to the channels, whatever I mentioned, so that you can get all this information free of cost. Okay, you not to pay anything. But only my aim is to make you people empower as much as possible. And also, I would like to thank once again Hemant sir and also the Department of Computer Science in the college for providing me an opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. One more confirmation I need, sir. Sir, there were several students asking your email ID. So could I share?
Yeah, sure, sure. You can share. Yeah, you can share.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Sure,
I'll
sure.
be sharing the students so that if they have any doubts, they'll be sending you an email.
Sure, sure. Thanks. Okay.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
students. Thanks for your commitment towards the attendance.